Hey guys, welcome to my Otherlands Elzion region, another Eden version 1.6.1 video update, overview and guide to the new and final Otherlands region. So what's new in this update? Well, we have a new unit called Tsukiha that's added to the Dreams. The Elzion region is added to the Otherlands, and including with that, we have new armor and weapons added as well. So, first off, Tsukiha, she comes in 4 to 5 star rarity. She's a fire elemental type with shadow. She uses slash, katana, and ring. Her valor chant is slash resistance of all enemies down by 25% and fire type resistance down by 25% for 1 turn. You can acquire her Murasame tome in Moonlight Forest very hard. So in Otherlands Elzion region, the weapons list here, we get a hammer, a staff, and another staff. Now the first staff, the Aceto Vita, is probably the only one that's worth getting since it increases your speed by 30 and reserves HP restoration increased by 20%, since you really want that speed so that you can go first. The others are okay, but not must-haves in my opinion. Next, we have the equipment. We have the bangle, ring, and ring, all from Elzion region. Again, nothing spectacular. These can mainly be skipped in my opinion. Alright, now let's go over the first area, which is the Airport Harbor of the Skies. Recommended level for very hard is 70 or higher. And as you can tell, I have some recommended units. You obviously want to try to bring a support, Mario and or Yuna, and a good mix of DPS to make sure that the bosses go down. Some other units to consider would be Annabelle, Bertrand, Isuka, Lokito, and Suzette. And here you have the map. You start from the very bottom, A, starting point, and you can go your way up to see where all the bosses, the chests, and the horrors are at. Next I have the enemy breakdown for this area. For the most part, they're weak to either wind or blunt attacks. And here we have the horror and boss breakdowns as well. For the most part, the bosses here are either weak to blunt or pierce attacks. So, first boss let's go over will be the custom search bit. The boss will specifically target a character that has a weapon type every 5 turns. You just obviously want to have a healer ready so that they could buff your ally or debuff the enemies, and make sure that they keep the person that's being targeted healthy at all times when the boss goes into his focusing mode. Take advantage that he's weak to pierce. Multi-hit users such as Suzette, Another Style, Leclerc, Seti, and Claude, who will be released at a later date, are all really effective. At 25% health, this boss will go into a destroy mode, so you want to make sure to kill him by then. And here I just have showcased some of his attack patterns, including the destroy mode. Next, we have the Agartram Prototype. He changes his behavior every 75 to 25% HP. If the boss reaches 5 stacks of buffs, it will counter with Deadly Force. Another force will accumulate the counter at the end of the attack, and since he's weak to blunt, we want to capitalize on that. Here are his attack patterns for those that want a more detailed look. Alright, to the next area, Route 99, Road to Corruption. It's recommended that your team level is 75 or higher for very hard. Here's the recommended characters list. Again, you always want to bring a support along with DPS that is tuned towards this area. Some other characters to consider, you can bring a tank like Annabelle or Bertrand. Azami, Lokito, Melina, Miyu, and Suzette are also fine to consider as well. Here are the Route 99 enemy breakdowns. They're mostly weak to wind and blunt attacks, similar to Area 1. And here are the horror and boss breakdowns as well. In this place, the bosses are weak to fire and pierce, or they don't have weaknesses at all. First up, let's look at the Synthetic Researcher and Soldier boss fight. The Researcher will add an AI chip to the Soldier every 5 turns to strengthen them, so attack the Researcher first is recommended. Both bosses don't have weaknesses, but the escort drones are weak to fire and blunt, so you can utilize them to build up your AF gauge. Here are the attack patterns for the Synthetic Soldier and Researcher and escort bits. Next, we have the Security bit. Security bit will summon 3 different bits each turn. It can get out of control if you don't take them down, because if they summons 4 at a fight, then they could technically taunt your units, which makes it harder for you to even target the Security bit in the back. And you want to get involved with killing them and keeping them under control with another force if necessary. Here are the attack patterns for the bits. Next, we have the Lone Synth Soldier. At 60%, the boss will summon an explosive bit that'll have a 3-turn countdown. If you don't kill it, it'll just do 2000 AoE damage to everyone on your team, but if you destroy it before the countdown, it'll damage the boss itself. And sometimes the boss may not even summon the explosive bits as well when he has a bubble trap pop up. You want to capitalize on the bit's weakness to fire and pierce. At 30%, the explosive bit will detonate on the next turn it gets summoned instead of 3 turns, and you want to plan your another force around the lower HP since the fight gets a little harder at that point. And here we have the different attack patterns for this boss, below 60% HP, and so on. Next we have Area 3, the Industrial Ruins, the Remains of Civilization. It's recommended that you're at least level 80 or above. A very hard mode. The recommended units are again 1 support such as Mario and or Yuna, and you want to have a strong wind team or blunt team to mix and match for your party. You can also consider the tanks again, Isuka, Mighty, Shani, or Suzette as well. Here's some of the breakdown for the enemies that you will encounter in this area. They are weak to wind and blunt. And at the time of the recording of this video, on the wiki there was only info on the horrors, but we'll still go into details with the bosses as well. So first up we have the Synth Warrior boss. For the first 4 turns, it will self-buff and change its weakness between water to fire to water and then to fire again. And after he alternates 4 times, he will then start doing an instant kill move on a single target. So if you have a great single target boss killer unit like Shion or Tsukiha, then that'll be great. Here's just some of his attack patterns. Next we have another Agartram boss. He's weak to blunt attacks and he changes his actions whenever he reaches 70% and 50% health. And once he's below 50%, he will start gaining a stacking buff called Maximum Boost. One of his abilities called Impact Bunker, it might be different in the global version, will actually push a unit to the reserves. So if you don't have a super high endgame team, you can obviously have a tank out. It'll prevent the effectiveness of the ability. You can put power debuffs on him and buff physical resistance to your team to help you guys survive. But the thing is, once he gets the 4 buffs stacks, then he goes on a rampage and does AoE physical earth attacks. So try to save your another force around his 50% health mark. And of course, here are his attack patterns. From normal mode to 70% to 50%. Next we have the Twin Bits Alpha and Beta. So there's several ways on approaching this fight, the first method is you could prioritize alpha first and then focus on beta, since beta with alpha up will have resistance to fire, wind, water, and earth. And if you kill alpha first, he will only have resistance to earth. So another thing is to know is that alpha will leave the battle after certain amounts of damage is done, and it'll reappear every 5 turns or if it's dead. And you want to build another force from its weakness to pierce. And if beta is the only one that's left, it'll enter an annihilation mode and it becomes a DPS race. Now the alternative method, in my opinion, is that if you have enough speared units, that way the bosses are weak against pierce, you can just keep DPSing them down, obviously AoE them whenever you can, and you want to kill them roughly at the same time, so you can use your another force to kill both of them. The fight, it can be a little challenging if you do not have the right team comp. Some extra notes is that Alpha can cast Seal on 3 allies, which can block your healers from getting a heal off if it so happens to seal off one of the heals. And Beta's third attack is a single target fire physical attack that packs a punch, so you want to make sure you have the proper buffs and or debuffs on Beta when he is about to do that move. I've also included the boss rotation on the right side of the screen. Next we have the 2 magic and 2 physical bits. The gray bits are weak to all magic and immune to all physical. The red bits are weak to all physical and immune to all magic. The fight will always start with grays first, and every 4 turns later they'll alternate to the other side for the reds. And after the 3rd rotation, all 4 bits will come together, but the fight should be over by that point. And since most teams are optimized to be physical for this region, you will probably be focusing on the red bits mostly. And if you kill them, then you won't need to be able to fight the others. Here are the bits' attack pattern. On the left side we have the gray bits, and on the right side we have the red bits. Finally, in Area 4, we have the Industrial Ruins high-speed area. It's recommended that you're level 80 for this, and some of the recommended characters are Mario and or Yuna for support, Suzette's another style or original form, Azami, Felmina, Claude, Isuka, Shion, or Seti. Now, Gallard's behavior changes at 60 and 25% HP, along with added resistance to him. He's always going to be weak to wind, so the more wind units that are built up for this fight, the easier it's going to be. And just to let you guys know, at 60% he gains physical resistance alongside water and earth, and at 25% he gains magic resistance. So anyways, that's pretty much it for the guide for Elzion region and Otherlands. I hope you guys enjoy this guide, and stay tuned for more and other Eden content in the future. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.